Hey guys, Drew here. In this video, I'm going to give you a variety of different ways to write a metal song. So for those of you out there that are new to the metal genre, or maybe you've never written a metal song before and you want to start putting your riff ideas into an actual complete song, I think you're going to find this video to be very valuable because I'm going to give you several different entry points with which to write something heavy and brutal and crushing. And for those of you guys out there that consider yourself to be pro metal songwriters, I think you'll also find this video helpful because you'll probably find something that you haven't considered before in this video, a new idea, a new entry point to write a crushing and brutal song. Also guys, feel free to share in the comment section below how you write your metal songs. I love hearing from you guys. I would love to hear how you write your songs, and I think there's a lot that I could probably learn from you too, so add that to the mix, throw a comment below, and with that all out of the way, let's get into this thing. Okay, so the first method or strategy that I'm going to talk about in this video for writing metal music is to actually write the lyrics first and the music second. So if you haven't done this before, I would highly recommend that you do this. And even if you're a guitar player and you don't typically write lyrics, it's something that I want you to try and that I think will kind of help get some new, fresh ideas flowing in your songwriting life. I'm assuming most of the viewers of this channel are guitar players of some sort. You'll probably get something new out of this experience if you try it. So for me, when I'm writing lyrics, I have to write about something that I actually care about. That could be a whole variety of things. So it's usually some type of story that I want to tell. It's some kind of message I want to convey. This could come from a book that I've read. It could be a news story that gets my blood boiling and that I want to put into a song. It could be a piece of fiction that I read that I thought was particularly compelling. It could even come from the Bible, okay? The most brutal book ever written where there's a lot of violence in it. Once I've found that I'm particularly inspired, and this could come at any moment, I'll just start writing different lyrics down. A lot of the time, the first draft is not complete, so I will keep all of those lyrics in a Google Doc, and then I will refer back to those ideas later. Sometimes it could take weeks or even a month to have a complete lyric written out, but it could sometimes take only a couple of hours. Another thing that I'll notice is that my lyrics can sometimes change once I actually start writing the music. To give you guys an example of this, I just put out my first ever solo death metal record, and there are 3 songs on that record that I wrote the lyrics first and then the music later. So the music formed around those lyrical concepts to help convey the message that I was trying to deliver. I think looking back on all 10 songs, those 3 songs are probably my favorite, and that was the first time I ever tried this, where I'm doing lyrics first and music second. To give you guys kind of an example of how fun and interesting lyric writing can be, recently I was watching a documentary on Netflix about an avalanche that occurred in the Colorado mountains in the 1970s. Unfortunately, the ski patrol workers and some other people had died as a result of this avalanche. But I started to imagine, what would it be like to experience that? What would it be like to hear that sound coming down the mountain, that rumbling sound and the sound of trees snapping? It's probably a sound that I never want to hear, but what if I could take that experience and encapsulate that in a death metal song? After all, in death metal, we write about death, okay? So not to make light of the people that died in that avalanche, to help tell that story and to sort of convey how brutal and insane an experience like that is, you could write a song about that, right? I think the key to writing great lyrics is just to be honest with yourself, find compelling and interesting stories, share something that you haven't heard before with a listener. Encapsulate your experience as a person on this planet, find a poetic way of telling a compelling story, and put it to music. I think that's really cool.
Crawling through the dark and take us
guys, so the second strategy I'm going to talk about in this video for writing a metal song, a compelling, brutal, crushing metal song, is to use a MIDI drum pack in your drum programming software. I'm assuming by now a lot of you guys watching this video know exactly what I'm talking about, but those MIDI packs are amazing, and the ones that I use are from Superior Drummer. They're loaded with different parts of a song: intro, verse, chorus, there's even drum fills in there, and they're performed by some of the world's greatest metal drummers. I don't have everything that Superior Drummer makes, but I do have a lot of their MIDI packs because I find these to be amazing songwriting tools. This is as simple as dragging and dropping a MIDI drum beat into your recording session, using that MIDI drum beat as a placeholder, okay? So maybe you need a blast beat. Maybe you need some nice double bass carpet rolls. All of those things can be found in Toontrack's Superior Drummer MIDI drum library. So I would suggest, if you don't have any of this stuff, go get some. Another really popular drum programming software is Get Good Drums, and I'm sure they have similar stuff in there as well. Here's how I use these MIDI packs. If I'm working on a particular guitar riff and I don't have time to program the drums, which can detract from the songwriting and the riff writing, I will just drag and drop these and use them as placeholders for that part of the song. Maybe it's the verse and I need a blast beat. I'll just find the blast beat that makes the most sense. I can just drag that MIDI information right into the session. Another way that I use this is for practice. If I'm trying to work on the speed of a certain section, I'm trying to get a certain guitar riff up to speed, I will make a loop out of that drum groove, progressively increase the tempo, and get it to the desired tempo that I'd like. Speaking of tempo, another way to use the drum grooves is to help you get the sweet spot for your riff. So I won't even drag it into the session yet. I'll just press play in the Superior Drummer software and listen to that drum groove and adjust the tempo to find that sweet spot for that particular riff that I'm working on. And then once I get that dialed in, I'll drag it into the session. All that to say, guys, I find these MIDI packs to be incredibly inspiring, and I will inevitably hear something that I haven't heard before, an interesting idea that was come up with from a world-class drummer that I can then have access to at home on my computer. How amazing is that? Alright guys, the third and final method or strategy that I'm going to talk about for writing metal songs is to write the music first and then add the lyrics second. And I think this is the most common way that most people write metal music these days. I could be wrong. That's how I typically write a metal song. So I wanted to talk about this, and I think I'm going to have a different approach at this than a lot of people out there. The big question is, how do you write music? And I think to write music, you have to be inspired. You have to be compelled to create something, and that can come from a variety of different places, some of which I already mentioned. Documentaries, paintings, something that happened to you throughout your life, and a good experience you had, a bad experience, maybe something that's happening in the world that you feel strongly about and you want to make a song about that, right? For me, when I think about the most fruitful periods of my life, the most creative periods of my life, it's when I was practicing guitar a lot. And looking back, you know, during the pandemic, I practiced the guitar anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day because really nothing was going on in the world. And I've just felt like that's how I should use my time. And I actually look very fondly back on that time in my life. What I found is that because I was practicing guitar so much, I had a lot more freedom in my mind to be creative because I wasn't always struggling with the instrument. There's a system that I use when I practice the guitar, and I have to attribute this system to my guitar teacher and mentor, Shane Roberts. And real quick, a little bit about Shane. He's one of the greatest guitar educators that I'm aware of in the Nashville area, probably the the United States and possibly the whole world. I learned a great deal from him, and he helped me organize all of the things I'm about to tell you. And it brought a lot of clarity to how to practice the guitar. And so I'm gonna share a little bit of that with you guys right now. How do you practice the guitar? Well, a lot of music consists of just rhythm and scales and harmony. So how do you practice scales on the guitar? Well, originally how I practiced scales was vertically, right? You just play 3-note per string, 2-note per string scales, things of that nature. But what Shane showed me was to actually play scales horizontally, one string at a time, okay? And then from there, I started to build intervals, and I would play every possible interval between all of the 6 strings of the guitar. Now I do it with 8 strings. After that point, I started to learn about triads and diatonic triads of a scale. And then from there, I would get into 4-note chords, 7th chords, chords that have a 9th or a 13th and beyond. And I could then sort of build everything one string at a time, and I could see how the scale exists both horizontally and vertically. Okay, I know that sounds like a lot, but if you are interested in getting into this kind of stuff, if you want to learn the guitar in a very forthright and clear way, you can hit me up. My email is in the channel description of this channel. If you just go to the main page, you'll find my email there. Reach out to me if you want to take a one-on-one lesson. I can break all of this down for you. Now, you don't have to do all of this time-consuming and detailed work to write music, but what I found is that my knowledge of the scales themselves and my understanding of music and how the guitar itself works just got a lot greater, and I became a much more intelligent and a much better guitar player and musician because I knew where all my notes were. I knew where all of my options were, and I had a system to organize all of those options for music creation. This is something that the great jazz pianist Bill Evans talked about. He called it the universal musical mind, and basically he believes that everybody is capable and everyone has this universal musical mind. All they have to do is learn 3 things, and those 3 things are exposure, effort, and conditioning. In order to make the music that you want to make, you have to be exposed to it. So if you love heavy metal music, you have to expose yourself to a lot of metal music. You have to understand the culture of different types of metal music and where it comes from and where it started in order to embed yourself in it and understand it and create it. The second thing is effort. You can't just sit back and enjoy the music and expect yourself to absorb it. You have to make an effort to understand what is happening in this music and how to make it. Case in point, the blast beat. When people first heard the blast beat, they didn't really know what it was. But a lot of drummers investigated that and figured out, it's a really fast beat between the kick and snare and, the ride of the hi-hat, right? And the last one, conditioning, is just conditioning yourself to learn the fundamentals of music and how to make music and sounds come out of your guitar. And so with the guitar, a lot of that is training your fingers, okay, and learning various techniques that are required to make metal music. For example, tremolo picking, alternate picking, economy picking, sweep picking, palm muting, pinch harmonics, all of that stuff is essential, I think, for making metal music. And once you learn those techniques, you can then put your own kind of spin on those techniques and play them however you want. In my opinion, you can write better and more compelling music if you have a solid foundation of techniques and fundamentals under your fingers. Bill Evans talks about how once you have the fundamentals down, you can let your subconscious mind take over the high mechanics of playing, in his case, the piano, in a very intricate and complex way. And then you can let the other part of your brain take over, and then you can become creative and spontaneously compose music in the moment, which is what jazz is all about. But we can actually apply some of those concepts to writing music in the metal sphere as well. So for me personally, once I spend a good 2 or 3 hours drilling through a scale, I will feel really comfortable with that scale and with my instrument. When you get the notes under your fingers, you can then start to explore all of the possibilities, and to me, that's where the magic is. Once I have an interesting and compelling set of notes, chords, intervals, and riffs, I can then start to imagine what those things will sound like rhythmically, okay? I can then organize them and make them fit into a rhythmic concept that is compelling to me. I also wanted to say that you can do this backwards too. You can come up with a compelling rhythm, which is what a lot of drummers do, and then you can then apply notes to that interesting rhythm. Another thing I wanted to say, guys, is that you don't actually have to know anything about music theory to write amazing and compelling music, but learning music theory helps you organize music into different like little filing cabinets in your mind, and you will also be able to communicate with other musicians more easily, especially musicians that don't play the same instrument as you. When you all have the same language and set of terminology to work with, you can communicate better in a band practice and convey an idea to someone else. If you guys are still stuck in a rut and you can't think of anything to write based on the ideas that I talked about in this video, what I would suggest that you do is just learn a metal song from your favorite artist, because you can actually learn a ton from the songs that you already love to listen to. On this channel, I've done covers of Meshuggah, Nile, Cannibal Corpse, Decapitated, some of my favorite metal bands, and every time I learned one of those difficult and challenging songs, I always became a better guitar player, and I was loaded with fresh ideas on how to approach the instrument. And because I know music theory, I was able to analyze what they were doing and store that in my memory bank so that I could write riffs similar to those favorite artists of mine. Well, there you go, guys. There's 3, maybe 4 strategies for you for writing amazing and compelling metal songs. I hope you found this video to be helpful and interesting. Let me know in the comments below something that you're gonna try in your own writing sessions. I would love to hear from you guys. And once again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like this video and stay tuned. There's a lot more coming. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.